And joining us now to talk about the weather for the week ahead, Eric Snodgrass of Nutrient. Eric, good to catch up with you again, sir. And I know this past weekend saw some decent rains across parts of the Corn Belt. Let's start there. Talk about that. What did we see here this past weekend?
Well, I mean, there was some good rains where you and I both be this week, right? I mean, some places in Iowa picked up 2 inches of rainfall, stretched into Minnesota, hit parts of Wisconsin, hit parts of Illinois, even over in Indiana and Michigan, places that really needed some more water to help the crop finish. So you're going to hear a lot of folks, I think, very happy with these weekend rains. Uh, Got a little bit in Kansas. They need a whole lot more. They're right now having a top 5 driest August month to date. Parts of Nebraska are too dry as well. But I think the big story as we go forward is who's going to get more rain as we go forward. And a lot of that's going to be down south, more flooding for the lower Mississippi River Valley, parts of Texas, and the tropics are starting to light up as well. So there's plenty to be watching in the weather over the next several days and weeks.
Well, and thinking about some of those areas that caught the rain here the past few days and then into this week as well, I would have to think that is going to be at least beneficial for soybeans and maybe in some spots at least maybe stabilize the corn yield, what's left there for the corn crop to get to the finish line.
Yeah, I think this was really going to be a big pusher for the beans. And you're right, something was late planted, still working on grain fill. That's going to be pretty darn good as well. But, as typical this time of year, we have two things to think about, all right? First of all, a La Nina fall tends to be drier, so that could be very good. But at the same time, La Nina falls also tend to produce big tropical systems. And while we don't have one forecast this moment to come up the gut of the Mississippi, I saw somewhat data this morning that suggested we could get some return flow that brings moisture next week. I'm talking early next week could come right up the gut of the Mississippi and dump some rain. But I think for Farm Progress Show this week, we'll be under high pressure. Bring the sunscreen, though. The sun will be beaten down at times, but we'll see some drier conditions moving throughout the Corn Belt.
Well, it is going to be a busy couple of days. Farm Progress Show. You mentioned the weather does look pretty good, and it looks like for the most part, the Central Corn Belt is going to miss out on some of the heat. But it sounds like we have some heat building in the West. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so there's this low that's going through the Great Lakes right now, and it's the one that be glad it's in Boone and not in Decatur, because we could get some strong to severe storms in Illinois today from this and even farther to the east. But once that gets out of there, what it does is it opens up for another big ridge in the west. And some of the temperatures I've been seeing across the west, I mean, could be scorcher, 101 to 105 Fahrenheit in the Central Valley, 100-degree in the Pacific Northwest. That gets all the way over to Idaho and Montana. And that warmth is going to spread. The models really open up the ridge. And I guess the most important thing about that is I would worry if we had a really high amplitude ridge in the west and one in the east, such that in the middle, all the cold air that could come down this time of year would. I don't see that happening over the next 15 days. So no crazy early scary frost for the northern plains, which they need as much time as possible to get this crop to finish. So that's kind of your temperature outlook as we go forward.
Well, and thinking as well, moving forward, that Western region, a lot of water scarcity out there. I know that's going to be an issue for some folks. And, all this kind of ties back to La Nina, Eric. And obviously, we've talked about this quite a bit. And with La Nina, what is it, year 3? And this is not normal that we have 3 years in a row of La Nina. So what are you seeing there? Any new forecast out, any new updates to La Nina as we move forward?
Yeah, a lot of times now between our big model runs, so we get new model runs at the beginning of every month. So between that, we do a lot of statistical analysis to kind of supplement what we're thinking. And some of the new information that just came out from the IRI multi-model group out of Columbia University, they're really sticking to their forecast, which is to drop the likelihood of La Nina off after December. So that means the start of the new year, we could be talking more about neutral conditions. And all that does is that allows for more sub-seasonal things to come in and affect the weather pattern, which means the patterns don't tend to get stuck quite the same way they do right now. So don't expect us to have any sort of a solid idea about what winter is going to bring, because we don't yet know if the polar vortex is going to behave. We think La Nina is going to back off. What does that do to the MJO? How does the Atlantic respond? Is there blocking? Oh my gosh. It's never ending, right, for you and me. There's always a market story. There's always a weather story, and we just plow on through it trying to keep ahead of it. But I think what I'm going to be most interested to see is by April. If by April we have eliminated the influence of La Nina, The jet stream will come out of the southwest, go from California to New York, and those springs tend to be very tight to get field work done, planting done. So I'll keep that story running in the back of our minds as we go forward.
Well, and I have to think as well, if we see that La Nina maybe start to go more to neutral, say in December, like you mentioned, that's got to help out South America, I would think, wouldn't it, Eric?
Well, kind of. And here's the reason why. So we're concerned that the northern growing areas like Mato Grosso is going to have an early start, and they're going to aggressively plant acres. Right now, every model says bring on some precip. Southern Brazil is where the struggle is going to be. That may be the delayed area for planting. Same thing for Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina. Now, that's the current thinking. That can change very quickly as we do the seasonal transition into September, and that's the important month for them, September and October. Now, let's imagine that La Nina falls off. Could we then see the MJO putting them in a pattern of precipitation such that if it gets stuck in phases 4 and 5, we're now talking about drought risk in northern Brazil? And it's crazy to say this, and you know it as well as I do. They start talking about drought problems when they're only getting an inch or an inch and a half of rain a week. They need 3, they need 4 because of the soil type there to really keep that crop huge. So Brazil has potential, huge potential because of the increased acreage, but I'm not yet convinced that this is going to be one of those years where the weather gives them everything they want. And I'll have to be proven otherwise before I kind of back away from that narrative.
Well, Eric, any other final thoughts? Anything I've missed here on the weather side that we want to mention this week?
Yeah, I'll give you 3 other quick spots internationally. Europe, okay? The big heat wave that was over Russia has broke. Heat's returned to France and Germany, where it's been all summer long. In China, southern China, the Yangtze River, another very dry next 10 days. Flooding in Pakistan, maybe we'll give you 4. Flooding in Pakistan, if you saw that over the weekend, that's going to start to back off, drier conditions there. But Australia, going into their spring, great soil moisture, plenty of precipitation. There's a lot of happy Australians with my forecasting right now because I'm giving them good moisture, although I'm not doing anything. I'm just telling them that it's going to be there.
Well, we appreciate the insight, and we appreciate your forecasting and all the knowledge you share. And I know folks can sign up for your daily newsletter. The link is on our website, markettalkag.com. And with that, Eric Snodgrass, a Nutrien, I'm sure we'll catch up this week at Farm Progress Show, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks.